Good morning, if it's morning in your area, afternoon. You may have seen Fela, you may have heard about Fela. I happen to have interacted with those who interacted with Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, Chief Anthony Enohoro. The stories he told me about what Fumilayo led other women to do will almost diminish what Fela did to that of a gentleman trying to, Fumilayo will take action before she tells you what the quarrel is. Ask the Alake of Egbaland in those days. There's another associate of mine and of the project, Professor Wole Soyinka. When we came to the point of being finally conquered by those who are holding us down, it took Wole Soyinka plunging into the middle to bring us to where we had a consensus to plan again on what to do to bring ourselves out of bondage. Pronaco. After the Pronaco, he became one of the plaintiffs that went with us to court in 2007. We finished Pronaco in 2005. Soyinka was one of my 10 plaintiffs who went to court to say we did not make the Constitution of Nigeria. And that suit that began almost innocuously has grown teeth. It will take down that monster that we've been discussing and describing from our various points of suffering, whether you were being killed in the Middle Belt, or you were crying for your resources in Niger Delta, or you were Yoruba being chased into IDP camps in Benin Republic, or you were in the East being slaughtered like a chicken. All of us are being exterminated by this one monster. And that monster is something that has legitimized itself by way of the Constitution we have to obey. It was imposed by that monster. That monster is now the owner of our lands, our sovereignty, our assets. That monster is the sole custodian of all the guns in the land, whether you went to the army or police or the DSS, wherever. That monster is the one that signs off on all the things that control economic assets. So Dangote can be given half of Lagos Port to do whatever he has to do. He can be assigned oil to refine and sell to us at whatever price. The limestone of Benue can be assigned to him to use free of charge to make cement and sell to us. So there's something fundamentally wrong. And so when we begin to look at the kind of title we have here, evolution or devolution, the previous speakers had done some justice in making a distinction. But let me create a common ground upon which we build what we have to do now. Because what I came to share with us is what we can do now to end this trauma. If we listen and do it, I tell you, by the close of this quarter, by the time people are heading out for Christmas, that enemy will be on his knees, because we went out in the last 22 years to work out how to dismantle this instrument, the Constitution, by which that monster has legitimized itself in our spaces in the name of a Nigeria that died in 1967. And so, whether you talk about evolution or devolution, let us rule out devolution. Because devolution means you are taken from where it is to give to the, constituent units. That is reverse logic. In a federation is a union of constitutions. In a federation, it is the constituent units that donate the powers that go to the center. So if anybody is still thinking in terms of what the center will do to give to creating states, creating geopolitical zone, that person doesn't understand what we're discussing. Then for evolution, yes, the revolution we talk about, which is really the solution to the problem, is only taken from the perspective of evolution, revolution is only about the degree of change and the speed of that change. So, if instead of taking 1,000 years, you decide to take 1 year, it is a revolution that you could move away from something that took so long to build. You could reduce it to 1 week. You could reduce it to 1 hour, where you now go straight to the palace, behead a few people, and take charge, and become the sovereign. And so, what we have to do is of a revolutionary nature, but there's a process that will manage all of what could go wrong, which was why we drew up a plan that took so long. Technical, please bring the battle script of 1960 so that we can see where this monster is coming from. If we understand where it's coming from and what is done to bring us to this enslavement, that go to everything. We can't generate electricity for ourselves. Not that we don't have the capacity. Somebody who doesn't want electricity for us wrote it down that we cannot generate electricity. It's called exclusive list. No, the one in red. Good. That is what we are dealing with. That is what has become the constitution that we have to obey. That the people who were handed over this territory by their joint venture partner Britain in 1960 were telling their left that the territory, which includes Yoruba land, Ijo land, Igbo land, Tiv land, Berom land, must be an estate of their great-grandfather Uthman Danfodio. On no account should there be a change of power. That they will use the minorities of the north, that's the middle belt as we have it today, as willing tools. The Gowons of this world, the Danjumas of this world, the Husainis of this world, Jeremiah. And that the south will then be a conquered territory. Never allow them rule over us. Never allow them control over their own future. If you bring the map of Nigeria, and you can, technical, bring the alliance map, you can see, in perspective, how that instruction has been executed. No, the other map. Good. You see the territory in yellow. That's the 12 contiguous states that have imposed Sharia. And the territory in white is the balance of Nigeria, the south and the middle belt. That instruction you saw there was the basis of all of what was done to impose this constitution that tie our hands to the back and seize our sovereignties. Like doctors who do, you go from diagnosis to prescription to treatment. If you miss the diagnosis, some say, oh, it's leadership. Let's go get better people to come to lead us. No matter who you bring to govern Nigeria now or manage Nigeria with this constitution, that person will fail. Because it's like asking them to go to fetch water with basket, the type you used to bring tomatoes from Jos. If I cannot generate my electricity, I cannot do the road from my state capital to the other capital because it's federal asset. I cannot defend myself, organize my own security. I have the capacity to, but I'm being prevented by those who imposed the instrument. There are 68 such items. I can't even elect who will govern me because there's an INEC in Abuja, in a federation. Imagine the day that people from Tennessee or some corner of California will have to come to New York to organize who will govern New York. That's what we've been living with. And it is in those 68 items that the oil and gas assets of the Niger Delta now belongs to people in Jigawa. It's in those exclusive lists that the port of Lagos, which is ordinarily Yoruba assets, have been the exclusive possession of people from that other part. From independence to date, not one controller general of Yoruba origin to collect the over 2 trillion that they take from that port every year. Yet Lagos has to join other states to go cap in hand to Abuja to beg every month. They don't get even 5% of what Nigeria takes away from here, from the port alone. You now talk about the taxes. Lagos is responsible for at least 60% of all of what they share in taxes, VAT and the other taxes. The 24 banks in Nigeria, apart from their Unity Bank, that is headquartered in Abuja, are all headquartered in Lagos. If their taxes were to be reckoned for what it should be in a federation, imagine what that alone translates to. The telecom companies and all of the companies operating here. But there's a federal government sitting in Abuja in a situation where our federation collapsed in 1967 completely. The garment, the carcass of that federation that collapsed was taken over by the man who was making that statement, the one in red, and his people. They are wearing that garment now, pretending that they are still Nigeria in place, and they imposed this instrument that now make us permanent political minority. We came into this federation as a federation of 3 regions, and one out of that 3, in fact, in 1963, Western region had to give up a part of it that became Midwestern region. By plebiscite. The 4 regions, of the 4 regions, one has become the 19 states and the Federal Capital Territory. That if you join the local government, they created 704 local government areas, in which Kano alone has 44. Bayelsa has 8. Lagos, that is responsible for half of urban Nigeria, whether it's human or material resources, is still to keep 20 local government areas. Whether you talk about representation or the sharing of resources or distribution of resources and opportunities, you will see that we've gone from being in control of at least each 25% to that one region has become 72% of all of what we are, including the assets that God put in our spaces. And so the nature of the problem we have to solve is that instrument that make us slaves in our land, there is nothing in apartheid constitution that is not replicated here. And it was imposed, and our signature, this is where the matter now becomes something we can deal with by ourselves. It is our signature that sustains this instrument. That preamble that says, I'm happy there are lawyers here, that preamble that says, we the people, having solemnly resolved to live in unity as one indivisible country, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution. That is the key for our escape from this dungeon. If we apply that key today, we'll be out of this whole mess, including the guns that are being pointed at us. Because it's on account of that false claim that you are called Nigeria. It's on account of that false claim that people who are after your life can come to your space pointing guns at you. It's on account of that, signature that your assets now belong to them. Everything we complain about, the corruption you think you need to go and fight, this constitution creates corruption and comprehensively protects the beneficiaries of corruption. If you want to ask me how, I will refer you to section 6, subsection 6C, that absolves government of responsibility towards you. Section 6, if there's any lawyer in this land that will want a debate on that, we ask him to come forward so that we can disgrace him in the open. Under section 6, subsection 6C of this constitution, the government does not owe you any obligation, because all the good things of life that are listed in chapter 2 for you, equal opportunity, education, healthcare, every good thing you can imagine are in chapter 2. But section 6, subsection 6C, renders it non-justiciable. leaving it at the discretion of people in government to do whatever they choose to do for you. Then they come to the appropriation provisions. They give them the spare key to the treasury. Section 81 of the Constitution says that the president must go to get permission to spend money, like other countries. But Section 82 says that while the legislature is debating that appropriation bill, he's at liberty to run government spending money subject to certain dubious limits. As it is the president in Section 81, 82, so it is for the governors in sections 121, 122. Do you know what that means? The heads of the executive branch in Nigeria have the spare key to the treasury and can take the contents of the treasury to the last bit without any form of inhibition. Nothing stops them. Then they come to section 308 that gives them absolute immunity. You can't question them for whatever they do. Between the three, they don't owe you obligation. They can take all the money and you can't question them. By the next election, their chief of staff is replacing them. The man who will go to prison, if you were to prove the previous tenure, that is who becomes the next person. And so they've managed to carry us, as if we can't think. And that was why some of us who had seen some of these things now decided to pull back from it and draw up a plan. It was a 20-year plan that was deployed the same year the Constitution came. Because it wasn't in 1999 they created the 36 states. Everything came from 1979. And that 79 came from what Murtala Muhammad commissioned before, they took him out in 76. And so, where we are now, to come to this the diagnosis. The British came and did what they did, handed over to them in 1960, and they've managed to maintain it by brigandage, toppling what we agreed in Lancaster House to impose what we now have. If we take down this, we will be free. Whether you want to be Odua Republic, or you want the kind of federation that Awolowo had, or you want Biafra, or you want resource control, our common task at this time is to take down this instrument. We are like in a cage under this instrument. And we are put in that cage by the people who gave the instruction that we should be put in that cage. How do we take down the instrument? Practical. Until science becomes technology, you are just theorizing. I come today to tell us that generation that enacted NSAS, this talk goes to you. If you listen now and do what needs to be done, anybody who is inviting you to come to election under this constitution is inviting you to sign off to be killed, because it's this constitution that has empowered those who can come to your space and kill you without consequence. It's this constitution that has empowered the politician that is stealing money you can't stop. It's this constitution that empowered people who can sit in Abuja and go 1, 2, 3, 4 down the list of those who scored at elections to bring a Hope Uzodinma to be governor in Imo. Imo is bleeding today. Igbo land is a festival of blood because we're in Nigeria. Yoruba has not come under that level of pressure. But if you go to the Middle Belt to see what the people who are supposed to be our compatriots in the same project are doing, they have opened our borders for their like to come from across the border to join them. They are in joint venture with ISIS. ISIS wants an operational base away from the Middle East. The man who is our president, who is also the champion of this Fulani invasion, opens our border to bring both ISIS and the Fulani that will help them to overrun the rest of us. That's what they are in a conquest mood. They are putting elections, PDP, APC, who will go first, to do what? To preside over this rape, and we are listening to them and looking at them and wanting to go with them. They are the ones who will do the PVC, plastic. But while they give you plastic, they are distributing AK-47 across your local communities. They are the ones who will carry the ballot box around. They are the ones who, the niece of our president is the one controlling INEC, and we're going to election. It will be signing our death warrant to go for one more election under this 1999 Constitution. What we are inviting you to do, and I speak to you now with the mandate of NINAS. Some of our compatriots from the Middle Belt couldn't get here. They are all involved in this message. We're informing you that the owners of Nigeria, and you saw them on the streets of New York 3 weeks ago, are saying to the whole world that our union has collapsed. We have defeated the constitution by which we are held down. Those who imposed that constitution are now on an attempt to conquer us afresh by extermination in order to reestablish their ownership and control. What we need to do, it is election they use to validate the life of the Constitution once every 4 years. All the problems are flowing from the Constitution. We all understand that. How do we now stop that cycle? If we go to another election in 2023 with them, instead of shutting down the journey, we are telling the political parties, and we can all insist, whether it's Party A or Party B or C that wins, the winner will swear to defend and uphold this abomination for another season. Meanwhile, every day we postpone this remedy. The ones who are approaching us with AK-47 will continue to come in the name of Nigeria. If we raise that issue in this last quarter of 2021, that we are not going to another election under this constitution, I tell you, by December, by the time people are heading for Christmas, that enemy will be on his knees begging for accommodation. If we don't, I can tell you, we are doomed.
Tony.